Welcome to Live with Miami's Community News, South Florida's #1 source for local stories. I'm Michael Miller, bringing people together and sharing the voices, events, and connections that shape our community.
You did this morning, that event. Tell everybody about it. What's next? What do we have to do?
Thank you for joining us. Today is going to be pretty interesting because we are with Josephine Novo, and you are the legislative chair for the Miami-Dade County Commission for Women. Long sort of title.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, we know you just got into law school, right? Congratulations on doing that. All right. I just heard your remarkable journey from high school to law school. So when did you graduate high school?
So I graduated high school in 2022. Right. I then began my bachelor's of business administration at FIU, and I finished that in 2 years. I graduated in December of 2024, and I had around 8 months off between that and the start of law school, which I started last week at FIU Law. Very proud to be, or soon be, a double Panther. Right. And yes, so I graduated with my undergraduate degree in 2 years, and I expect to graduate law school by 2028.
How did you do that in 2 years?
A lot of hard work.
Some of us do it in 5.
A lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and a lot of proactive thinking. So I very much thought to myself in high school, you know, I enjoy working. I enjoy being in the world. My parents were small business owners, and I was brought up in sort of that business environment of go-getters and doing things and movers and shakers. So I said, I want to finish this as fast as possible and get into the real world. And so I thought to myself, what classes are going to get me ahead the fastest and what's going to count for me? And those classes were AP English Literature classes, AP US Government and History classes, and a CLEP exam from Miami-Dade County. So that combination of credits that I was afforded before I graduated high school, along with a few hearty summer semesters in my undergraduate degree, allowed me to graduate in 2 years.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
And FIU's ranking continues to climb. My hat's off to the school system for making that happen.
Shout out to Jeanette
and for the students that are studying to do well. So tell us what the Miami-Dade County Commission for Women is.
So the Miami-Dade County Commission for Women is an advisory board for the county. And essentially what we do is we advise the county commissioners on the status of women and girls in Miami-Dade. Part of what we do is our annual CDAW report with Florida International University and with the county auditor's office. And we collect data on the status of women in Miami-Dade. And we primarily focus in 4 areas: safety, education, women's economic opportunity, and health. And so we collect data from those 4 sectors, and we comprise them in our Status of Women report. Based on those numbers, every year, our legislative committee, which I head, develops recommendations to then present to the commissioners. Usually we present them in the spring. And based on that, the commissioners take actual legislative action. And so in that way, we're able to shape and mold policy regarding women, girls, families in Miami-Dade County and make an actual impact.
Where do you get the scientific evidence so you can make make a presentation to the commission? Where does that come from?
So it comes from a variety of resources. As I mentioned, the commission auditor's office is central in this collection of data. They look at things like the census. They look at things like databases on human trafficking and other such areas. And then, of course, we work with Dr. Elcheva over at FIU to collect data on women's economic opportunity specifically is her main focus. And so we combine all of that together. So it's a very large collaborative effort between ourselves, the auditor's office, and FIU. And we are able to source this from certified databases and government reports and such.
So, Josie, how do we know as consumers of that information that represents all the women or geographically throughout all of Miami-Dade County?
So when you look at the census, it breaks down by geographic area. In fact, you can pull up the census report right now on your own, and you can find by geographic area the information that the U.S. government collects every 10 years when they complete the census. Miami-Dade County keeps an active record and tally throughout several polls and surveys that they do and active lists of residents. And so throughout this continuous data collection and combination of sources, we're able to robustly determine that these are women that live in Miami-Dade County, these are girls. And many of our numbers even take a look at county employees themselves, which of course the county has that information. And so we simply need to look at our own records, which things like county employee salaries, positions, all of that sort of thing is public record. You could look it up yourself. And it's just an amalgamation of all of those things and being precise and organized about the data.
How do we make sure that it is diverse and the people in Florida City and Homestead are represented as well as the people, as well as the women in Aventura?
Well, certainly when we look at this data collection, that's why we have so many sources. We want to be broad. And that's why in our recommendations, we include feedback from community stakeholders. So we will meet with groups like the Women's Fund, like community advocacy groups down south. Several of them have to do with women's safety and human trafficking, particularly in those areas like Florida City, because it is a hot button issue for them. And so part of that is making sure that we connect with those primary groups. And then another part of that is our on-the-road series of meetings. So currently, the Miami-Dade County Commission for Women, we've been rotating districts as we hold our meetings. And our meetings are public. So you could come to them, your producers, those watching at home. Anyone who wants to come to a Miami-Dade County Commission for Women meeting can. They can express their thoughts, their concerns. And by moving from district to district, we come to the residents. And residents are able to come to us. In particular, our second most recent on-the-road meeting in Miami Lakes was very well attended. And I believe we had around 20 to 30 guests at that meeting. We've also had some in Ball Harbor and a myriad of other areas. And so it's making sure that we come to them and we make ourselves an open resource and that we connect with the groups that know those areas and communities best.
When the pandemic was here, CHI got their vans and their buses, and they went into the areas that either the men, the women, the kids could not make it to a clinic, or they were afraid, or didn't have transportation. When I saw what they were doing, part of the county funding in there, when I saw what they were doing, that really inspired me to, as you were doing it, you went to where the people were and are, so you can figure out what's really going on. So you get all this information and you put it in some sort of format, and then you give it to the county commission. All this is public.
Yes.
What does the commission do with it?
So the county commissioners, they can take our recommendations and they could adapt it to their own format, right? So essentially these are suggestions. These are formal recommendations that we make based on data and based on ideas that we've received from the community stakeholders that I mentioned, from residents, from being exposed to the different walks of life. We have 24 members on our board. There's 2 representatives per county commission district. And so we have women that live all across Miami-Dade represented on our board, voicing their opinions, giving their ideas. And so in that way, there's representations from all the districts as well. And so when we present these recommendations to commissioners, we make sure to cater the information to them in such a way that it is substantive, it's impactful, it makes them want to take action, and most importantly, that they are open to these ideas. And so our most recent presentation was met with quite a bit of success. And a lot of people have the idea that women's advocacy has to be partisan. But in fact, we've been met with bipartisan support, and the Commission for Women is apolitical. Our job is to help women and girls and families. And so that has nothing to do with right or left. It's a matter of safety, of health, of education, of economic opportunity, all of the things that our nation stands for. And so I find that when we present these data figures to the commissioners, they are very happy and willing to take act. And in fact, Commissioners Rob Gonzalez, Commissioners Bastian, McGee, from all sides, we've had so much interest. Commissioner Renee Garcia recently sponsored one of our events, which is a disability resource fair. And so we're seeing that these numbers have universal appeal and everyone has an interest in the success of women and girls, because women comprise a little over half our population. And so when women succeed, men also succeed. And so our families and our communities succeed.
So when you come up with information that, 1 out of 4 young women have been sexually abused, and you bring that again so often, to the commission, what do you want to have happen with those young ladies?
We want the commissioners, first of all, to take action, of course. We want them to see what's going on in their communities and to take note, right? Because unless these numbers are brought to them, then nothing can be done. But most of all, we want to make an impact in the lives of these women. We want to lower those numbers. We want to improve those high numbers of rape and human trafficking and sexual assault. We reported an 84.4% increase the last time we presented this report in rape. And so those are staggering figures that are cause for action. And what we would simply like to see is to see those numbers go down, see less women harmed, see less girls harmed, see that Miami-Dade County becomes a safer place for all of us.
And let's talk about healthcare for those people in our very diverse communities. It's obviously it's a financial issue. Plus, there's lots of people, especially single men, don't take as good care of themselves as if they were married. It's just a fact, right? What do you want the county to do when you report back? Say, hey, this is what's going on in Homestead. This is what's going on in Princeton. This is what's going on in Goulds. All right, it's not going on in Aventura or in Sunny Isles, but down south. What can the commission do to help these young people?
So there's a myriad of things. Overall, what you want from all of these recommendations is for your elected officials to see that and to take action and to be representatives of their area. That's why you have to live within your district, right? You understand best the needs of a community when you live there. The needs of District 9 might not be those of District 11 or 12. And so that's why you have these representatives, and they are uniquely able in their own way to represent their constituencies. And so we want them to be moved to take action and to tell us, okay, well, in my community in Kendall, we're seeing a lot of this. Let's focus in on that. And then to see these varied initiatives kind of take place, because in that is how we are best able to serve diverse communities. When we acknowledge that different areas have different needs, and when we undertake specific intentional projects to work in those communities.
Tell us about the Disability Resource Fair.
So that came about for a lot of reasons. I was mainly motivated because my brother is disabled. My brother has a condition called MECP2 duplication syndrome. And when we came out with our CDAR report, and I was first undertaking this presentation responsibility as legislative chair, we had so many concerning figures surrounding mothers. Our mothers need support, and that's a simple fact. And something that often gets overlooked is not just mothers, but mothers of disabled children and parents in general, mothers and fathers. They need support. The resources might be there, but they don't know how to connect to them. And sometimes they're just directly lacking. And so I said a lot of these resource fairs that you sometimes see don't cater to the everyday needs of these children. I live it every day. Things like special Pampers, right? For those kids that are too big for baby diapers, but too small for an adult diaper. And those are super hard to find. And yet you still have the need to keep your child hygienic and to change their pamper and to cater to those biological needs. A barber who has the patience to sit with your child and cut their hair when they might not understand that they need to stay still, or they can't communicate because they're nonverbal, that perhaps the hair that fell on their shoulder is bothering them and they might feel overstimulated, or whatever they might be feeling, or a dentist that understands the needs of your child and will sit through that treatment and will take special steps. For example, some children, like my brother, need to go under general anesthesia most of the time when just to do something like a simple cavity fill, right? And so you need people that are specially equipped for that have the heart, that have the patience. And so that was something that I proposed to the Commission for Women. And I said, we have this need, it's supported by data, and I have the lived experience of this. And do you ladies support me? And they were so kind as to lend me their support and to vote in favor of this initiative. And some of them even gave me organizations and stuff that they knew about, and we included those in the event. And so at the end of the day, we were able to get the participation of just over 40 organizations. We gave out free haircuts, over 500 diapers. We raffled off therapy sessions, legal consults, even an iPad. And we also had the support of the wonderful city of Hialeah, their mayor, Jacqueline Garcia Roves, and their councilwoman, Monica Perez, whose son is also on the spectrum. And she was just enamored by this initiative, and she really helped me so much and brought so many more organizations to the table, and was a very passionate advocate for the idea that I had brought to her. And so this was wonderful. We saw around 200 families join us that day, and it was a wonderful impact. We also had the blessing of giving to 4 low-income families who had disabled children brand new wheelchairs and mobility equipment. And so these kids that needed wheelchairs were awarded with brand new ones. And that was thanks to the help of an organization called Chariots of Love. And we were just so fortunate to do that. And I would like to continue that pattern of intentional, powerful outreach on the commission.
It must be very fulfilling for you.
Yes, 100%. I mean, it's a labor of love. I did it, again, because of that learned experience with my brother, and seeing those families, seeing them get emotional, seeing them get the help they need. There's nothing like it.
So depending on which figures you want to buy into, autism is either 1 out of 30 to 35. Recent figures I've seen is 1 out of 20. And if you counted other related disorders, it's 1 out of 7. what can your organization do to make the commission and others be acutely aware of what's going on with that?
Well, first we need to talk about it, right? And so that was part of the idea with the disability for we bring this idea to the forefront of your mind and we discuss this issue. And second of all, when we begin to discuss, then we can talk about actual inclusion, right? And so something that we see a lot in schools is we talk about inclusion and stuff like that, but you don't have actual inclusion. A lot of the time, the special needs children are off to the side in a separate classroom. They're not included amongst their other peers who do not have special needs. Sometimes they even have separate lunchrooms and they can't eat together. And so you think, is this really inclusion? Is this really accommodation? Are we actually making space for these kids in our public and private schools? And that's something that I've noticed very much with my brother. And a lot of special needs children actually benefit from being around children who do not have special needs because they picked up on the behaviors of their peers who perhaps do not have those same struggles. And in turn, those children who do not have special needs learn from them. They become much more empathetic people. My little brother had a class that he basically grew up with, and those children were pretty much all children that did not have special needs. And you'll see that my brother would walk into class and they'd yell, "Juan!" and they'd give him hugs and kisses. And sometimes my brother has the tendency to rock back and forth like this. And they'll see that he does that because he is nonverbal and he can't express emotion. So sometimes he'll move his hands or he'll move. And that's how he kind of expresses himself for lack of being able to verbalize. And you'll see that they'll run their hand down his back and kind of calm him down. And you would never see that from a child that was not exposed to a person with special needs at an early age. So they benefit from becoming more empathetic and understanding and accepting humans. And the child conversely benefits from learning from behaviors that they otherwise would not have been picked up on if they had been secluded in another off to the side classroom where they didn't get lunch or something like that together with their other peers.
Well, we have a learned experience here. A couple of years ago, a father came to me, my father, and said, "Listen, would you give my son an opportunity? He's autistic, went to college, graduated college." And I felt an enormous amount of pressure because the only thing that I knew about autistic kids was when they were severely autistic. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, "He's not going to start screaming, is he?" He says, "No." And so then he proceeded to show me a video that he was making. And I started to look over to see if I was going to look at it. I said to myself, you're not going to take this opportunity away from yourself and the father to get you and this organization to give this young man a chance. And I didn't even look at it. I said, okay, all right. The answer is yes. Internship, 4 hours a day, 3 days. At the end of the first day, we offered him a job. Next month, he'll be here 3 years.
Wow.
And to watch the change, the evolution of this young man there, because he felt comfortable enough here. And he got so comfortable with himself, he put on his own LinkedIn page. That's why I feel comfortable in talking about it. Just because we don't smile doesn't mean we're not happy. Just because we don't laugh doesn't mean that it's not funny. We just process stuff differently. Mm-hmm. And when we watched him change so much, and I've had open conversations with him, do you know what's going on with you? How much better, how much more open that you are? When he came here 3 years ago, he wasn't like that. So what I'm asking people to do is give somebody a chance, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The folks called me, the parents, and they were very, very happy, obviously. And a month later, I called the dad, and he said, what's going on? I said, I just want to thank you for introducing me to your son. And he says, I thought you were calling to let me know that you were going to let him go. I said, no. And we realized here, long before his friends did, the difference that he made here into our organization. And so, again, there's an opportunity for lots of folks to pick somebody that works for them. And so we were really happy with him. And if you up there on the wall, I don't know if you can see it up there, he did that one day.
Oh, wow.
AI assisted. And each of the people, there's a cartoon and war characters up there.
Okay, I see it.
All the faces are hosts that are here. And he put that together. Interesting enough, there's a woman up there that's wearing all this armor, and that woman has had 2 femurs replaced. And he knew that, and so he put this protective thing around her, right? Yes.
Wow.
It was really incredible. So, we've been an advocate for the conversation, and that's really what it takes to get people to be able to say, okay, let's bring it up and let's have the conversation. Let's take it out here. There's a young man by the name of Victor Otunzo, who has an 8-year-old non-communicative daughter, we were doing a meet and greet here, and he happened to come to our meet and greet. That was in April, and we were talking to our people about autism. I said, all right, since you're here, you got the floor, you got 5 minutes. And at that same time, we had Rabbi Yossi Harlick from the Friendship Circle, and we had the Miracle League folks that were here, and we had somebody from the University of Miami Center for Autism and Related Diseases here. And since then, Victor's probably brought in 30 people with autistic children and had that conversation and brought in professionals. And we recognize if more agencies, more people would do that, it will be different than when I grew up. We called them slow, and that's what the word that was used by Carlos McGoy from Jackson when we asked him about that. He said, when we were kids, younger, we used to call them slow. Then it triggered my brain, yes, that's what we do. And we'd say, stay away from them. Mm-hmm. And it was almost like we were going to catch this disease from them. And I think that thing is still for certainly people over the age of 50, right? To where it's like they're never exposed to it. And so we know the way this gets better is that big conversation. And I hope the county commission is listening. Spend some more money for the kids and with the kids. Because one of the things that we recognize, it's just not that child, it's that family unit. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Tina Carroll Scott, she's with the South Miami Children's Center here in South Miami, pediatrician. She left to practice in Bal Harbor 17 years ago, very lucrative practice. She came over here to South Miami to take care of the kids that needed it the most. And she taught me the difference between treating a patient and a family. That's when it sunk home, when you make a change. It's just not that child. It's just not that woman, all right? It's their sisters and their mothers and their uncles and everybody that keep that going. So what do you think that you would like to get done with the Commission for Women? What would you like to see happen in this upcoming year?
So a great myriad of things. First of all, I want to commend you for taking on an autistic staff member, because that was an act of God right there. What you've done for him and his family is immeasurable. And I do believe that acceptance, that having them around, what people don't realize is that autism, and not just autism, but all disabilities are a spectrum. Not everyone is kicking and screaming all the time. Not everyone is violent. In fact, many of them are not. The majority are not. And really what we need to do is just let them in and accept them, not push them off to the side and act like it's a contagious disease of sorts, but just integrate them into normal life and include them in these experiences and give them the opportunity, as you mentioned, right? I'll go out to this day with my brother, and people will stare at him like if he's a TV screen. And disabilities are quite frequent and normal. Even older individuals that you'd think that there was more exposure just because of the longevity of their life, and they stare. And don't stare. Have a conversation. Let's talk about it. Include them in their life, but don't treat them like aliens. That's the worst thing you can do. And in fact, it's a detriment to yourself, and it's a detriment to them. To get to your other point, to your question, there's a great number of things that I would like to do with the Commission for Women. As legislative chair, I've prioritized revamping our recommendations. So when I came in as legislative chair, it was my turn to present the last report that have been created, because the way that the timeline is that towards the summer months, we get the numbers from FIU. And so we take a hiatus in August, and in that early fall, we develop the recommendations, and then we present them to the commissioners in the spring. And then after we present that, we get the more updated numbers. And so that cycle continues. And so I had received those recommendations and those figures that were created before I was on the board. And having looked at them and looking at past reports, and not just that, but the myriad of amazing women that have passed through the Commission for Women. We've had women that have been state representatives, that have been attorneys, that have been judges on our board. And I think to myself, we have the opportunity to make a real change here, to make real substantive policy recommendations. We have the ear of the commissioners when we go to those BCC meetings and we give our yearly presentation. And so my undertaking now is to beef up, so to speak, these recommendations and try and make them more substantive policy recommendations, not things that are I don't want to say superficial, but things that are not as policy oriented, These are supposed to be policy oriented recommendations. I'm a legislative nut, as you can. I'm going to law school, for Christ's sake, right? So we want to do things that actually affect our policy, affect the law, affect our programs, and give these new revamped type of recommendations and set a precedent for weightier, meatier decision making and conversations. So there's that. And then I would also like to bring in a lot more outreach and increase our presence in the community. The community does not know that we are a resource for them, that we are an advocate for them, if we do not make ourselves known to them. And a lot of that is outreach. It's doing events like the Disability Resource Fair, and it's catering to the needs that we find in the CDOC, creating initiatives for them. So one of our recommendations that was presented was to create a maternal health fair. And Commissioners Bastien and Gonzalez, to their credit, as soon as we presented that, said, I want to do that, let's get on it. And they're in the process of planning those things out now. And so we see that we have their ear and that they care about this. And so we need to do that outreach. We need to get out in the community in that way. And we need to make sure that our recommendations are solid for the future.
There's a whole group of people, probably under the age of 40, that don't understand that women have been oppressed and suppressed forever. And it certainly is getting better today. Something that's sort of related, in the middle 80s, I was in a Rotary Club, and they wanted me to be the secretary and take notes. And I didn't want to take notes because that's what I was doing every day. So I brought somebody that worked here, happened to be a woman. And then after a month, I recommended for membership. A week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes by, 4 weeks go by. I don't hear anything. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. So I wind up at a board meeting. I said, what is going on? Well, Michael, when they let a woman into the Rotary in Kendall as a treasurer, now they don't have any money. I said, what you're doing is wrong and it's illegal. And they said that about Jews and blacks, you better stop. And I didn't do it because it was a woman. All right, I did it because I didn't want to be the secretary. But there's a time that we each have to stand up and make that point, because if we don't, all right, that your daughter one day is going to have to be faced with that. Mm-hmm. Right. So my hat's off to you.
Thank you, sir.
And to your colleagues there, and to all the people that preceded you. All right. And so we wish you lots of good luck. And I would like you to come back, and I would like you to be a host and bring people, 1 or 2 people that are important to you.
Thank you, sir. Right. I would love that.
You don't have to say sir.
Well, just a matter of respect.
All right.
Thank you
Josie,
so much.
Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to look right in that camera there. And what I want you to do, Josie, I want you to thank somebody that has helped you.
Thank you very much to my amazing mom, Stephanie Amenedu, who inspires me, pushes me, and gives me the best advice that anyone could ever give every single day. Te quiero mucho, mami.
And folks, there's a Disney rule, and the Disney rule is this: when you hug somebody, don't stop until they do. Have a great day, and thank you for joining us. Bye now.